Hello and welcome to your Mystic Monday mashup video for the week of November 19th to the 25th. So before we get to your choice in cards, I want to cover what's going on in this week's energy. So we always do the energy and advice cards to start out these readings to give you an overall forecast of the week ahead. But this week in particular, we have a lot of stuff that's coming together. So last week we ended a Venus retrograde. So for the past several weeks, we've been reevaluating and being called back into ourselves in regards to how we see things as beautiful and how we view love in our lives. So those lessons are still kind of finding their solid footing within our beings as that planet starts to go direct. And then on the same day, last Friday, we had Mercury going retrograde. So if you are not familiar with Mercury retrograde, you are probably one of the last people on the planet, because even the non-astrologically minded in my life have heard of Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde is a time period when Mercury appears to be going backwards in the sky. And because Mercury is the planet of communication and transportation, those are the areas of our lives that tend to get a little bit funky. They get a little bit stalled during this time period. And I'm a big believer that Mercury retrograde is a blessing, not a curse. So it's a really great time, any retrograde actually, is a really great time to reassess and evaluate the things in those areas of your life that might need a little editing, that might need a little bit of cleansing, or might just need a shift in perspective. So just know that going into this week, we are going to be experiencing some snafus, possibly in the way that we communicate and in the way that we get around in the world, and also with technology. So back up your smartphones, put a protective cover on them, and make sure that you are prepared to take a little extra time when it comes to getting from place to place, and take a little extra effort when it comes to communicating with others. So if you do want to know more about Mercury retrograde, I am writing a piece on the blog, so you can check that out in the link below. And I also have a Mercury retrograde yoga flow to help you ground you during this time. So I will put that link in the description as well. So now that you know what the planets hold for the next week, I'm going to go into what the Moon Child Tarot has to say about our energy and advice for the next 7 days. So the energy card that we've pulled for this week is the Ace of Swords. So the Ace of Swords is a really great time to find clarity. And it's an interesting time to find clarity because Mercury tends to cause a little bit of fuzziness, a little bit of confusion. However, I feel that this week's Ace of Swords is really about finding clarity on our internal worlds, on our thought process, around our perspective. Mercury retrograde and all of the retrogrades that we've experienced over the past several weeks are really great ways to turn inward and evaluate the way we see the world in different areas of our lives, and essentially in all of our areas of our lives, because we've had all of the planets retrograde this past 6 months or so. So I would say that the Ace of Swords this week is about finding clarity around your individual thought process and how you can shift your perspective in any given situation. Right, Zoe? So as you find that clarity, the advice that the Moon Child Tarot has for you is shadow work. So I'm so excited to pull this card because it's my first time finding this card in this deck, and it is an add-on to the Major Arcana for the Moon Child Tarot. So I love that the Moon Child Tarot creator, who also created the Star Child Tarot, adds on additional Major Arcana cards that are very esoteric and sort of a part of the universe. So in the Star Child Tarot, my deck has an Akashic Records card, which is all about the knowledge of the universe. Whereas the Moon Child Tarot, the shadow work card, comes with a feeling of allowing yourself to shine light on the parts of your world, the parts of your psyche that maybe don't feel so happy and sunny. And that doesn't always have to be a bad thing. So shadow work doesn't have to be something that we shy away from. It can be about delving into the things that scare us in a way that allows us to conquer our fears. So in regards to this card this week, the shadow work is really internal. It's not about going and finding the thing that scares you the most in the world externally and conquering that fear or facing it. It's about looking at yourself and looking at the parts of yourself that maybe you're not so proud of, and evaluating why that is, And sometimes when we evaluate our shadow side, we realize that it's not as dark as we thought it was. It doesn't deserve to be in the shadows. It's something that someone in our life along the way has presented a contrasting viewpoint and caused shame in that area, and that's why we put it on our shadow side. And when we review it as adults, we realize that there really is no shame around it, that shame was projected upon us. And sometimes when we look at the shadow side, it is stuff that we're not so proud of. It's our jealousy, it's our greed, it's our manipulation, and that's stuff that we need to be aware of as well. So by shining light on your shadow sides, by shining light on the aspects of your psyche, your personality, or your interactions in the world that don't feel super comfortable to you, you can start to ask the questions of how you can shift this energy. And again, it might be about shifting your perspective into a more positive place in regards to those qualities, or it might be about actually shifting the energy and trying to cleanse yourself of these bad habits. So as Mercury turns retrograde and you're called to hold back on being too open with your communication just because it can get a little bit funky and a little bit misconstrued, it's a really great week to have a lot of conversations with yourself and to really journal things out or meditate or go within in whatever practice serves you and ask yourself, what is it about your thought process, your views in the world, and your views on yourself, your self-esteem, your self-love, that you could use a little spring cleaning on. And it's a really good week to use that mind because we have this Ace of Swords clarity. And so we're able to kind of cut through the bullshit. That Ace of Swords is just a sword like cutting through the thickness of the thought patterns that were wrongly projected upon us and allowing ourselves the time to really recognize what we believe and what we want to be in the world. And if the things that you're thinking, if the things that are going on in your mind or in your interactions with the outside world don't feel like the person that you want to be, ask yourself what steps you need to shift that. Do you need to find more self-love to accept those parts of yourself? Are they truly a part of yourself that are ultimately going to be important in the way that you present yourself to the world? Or are they qualities that don't serve you any longer? So now that we know how Mercury is affecting the week ahead and how the Ace of Swords is better applied to your internal focus and your shadow work this week, we will now jump into your fuzzy Prism Oracle cards. So if you didn't see the card selection on my Instagram on Sunday night, choose your card from the following image now. So if you pick card number 1, the card to the left of your screen, your oracle card for the week is Acceptance. So I think that the Acceptance card is a beautiful card when it comes to shadow work. It really is allowing you to go within with a sense of self-love and a sense of openness to whatever it is that you're going to find as you dive into your shadow side. And it's about being able to see everything with love, both within you and without you, and recognizing that even your psyche, even the parts of yourself that are judging yourself or the outside world, it all comes from something that happened within your development. Maybe it's in a past life, maybe it's in your childhood, but it's not something that you necessarily chose. So you can go in with it and accept those flaws and accept that they are a part of your unfolding. Ultimately, we are never taken to a place that we are not supposed to be. So we've all come into this lifetime signing on for the experience that we are about to have, and it's all for the betterment of your soul. It's all to get you to the next level. So even your darkness, even your shadow side, even the things that make you cringe about yourself, they are ultimately there to help you level up by finding a state of acceptance and or by moving past it and getting over your past assumptions and getting over your past judgments. The acceptance is going to soften the energy, and it's going to be easier through that softness to integrate change. So accept yourself, even your darker side. So if you pick card number 2, the card to the center of your screen, your card for this week is Progress. So for those of you picking the center card, I feel like your shadow work is going to be very forward momentum. It's going to create a lot of change, a lot of upgrading and up-leveling within your soul. So go into it with a little bit of leeway and a little bit of acceptance, like our card number 1 people, but also recognize the areas that you can move forward. I feel like you're going to be evaluating some things that are no longer a part of who you are. And so if you can trace it back to where you found these beliefs about yourself or about others, where you started to find these darker mindsets, you can then start to let them go and recognize that they're not actually authentically you, and then that way you can progress past them and create an even more complete view of yourself. And then you'll have an easier time accepting your shadow side because you will have chosen it. It's not going to be anything that's projected upon you any longer. It will be the things that you've made peace with or you've moved past. So it will be about letting go of what's not serving you and moving forward because you deserve better. And then if you pick card number 3, the card to the right of your screen, your card for this week is Learn. So I love that this card has this beautiful sort of cosmic theme to it, because the learning that you'll be doing when you evaluate your shadow side and when you find the sense of clarity with the Ace of Swords is really more of a learning of spirituality, a learning of opening up to things that might have made you feel uncomfortable before. And this could be within yourself, but I also think it's a broader scope for the card number 3 people. Your shadow work is going to be about looking at what you're afraid of in the outside world, even as far-reaching as the world that you cannot see, the other realms that are existing around you. And so the shadow work is about making peace with the unknown and making peace with the fact that sometimes it's okay to just trust your instincts and trust your intuition, even if there's not concrete evidence in this realm to prove whatever it is that you're feeling. So as you dive into those shadows, as you dive into what you're afraid of, recognize that some of it might be stuff that's not even present in this moment, in this lifetime. You might be having some shadow sides and some fears that you're dealing with that are from past lives. So a great example of this is a recent post that I found on Instagram from one of my favorite authors, Lisa Lister, and she was talking about how she has a lot of fear around dental work because she has a past life where there was a lot of torture that happened for her voice, for her using her voice too authentically, which for women is a real thing in our past lives. We have been punished in the past for speaking up for ourselves. And so something about someone being in her mouth and around her tongue and around her throat and this whole area of her world was extra sensitive to trauma. And so when she would go to the dentist, even though the dentist in this lifetime was serving her well and improving her health and well-being, she would have a reaction that wasn't rational for the experience that she was going through. And it's because of this past life stuff. So as you evaluate your shadow side, look at the fears that don't feel like they make sense for the current circumstance that you find yourself in, and still honor that you can have those fears, that you probably have an experience somewhere where it made total sense why that was something you were afraid of to protect yourself. But then if it's not rational any longer in this lifetime, if it's not serving you, see if there's a way to kind of soften that fear and let yourself know that everything is okay here and now, and that you are safe. But learn as much as you can about where these fears come from so that you can let go of the ones that no longer serve you. I hope that these readings have served you well. As always, if you would like more tarot or readings of your own, head over to michellesheawalker.com/tarot. If you would like healing around your past lives or any other fears that you have in your shadow side, head over to michellesheawalker.com/Reiki, or find any energy healer that can help you to move past these emotions and maybe find some help in softening these fears and finding more love for the shadow parts of yourself. And as always, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button below, ring the bell to be notified when there's a new video, because they happen every week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.